Hey everyone, Kevin here. Today, we're building an automated data entry form in Excel. We'll start by designing the form with text fields, checkboxes, dropdowns, and a submit button. And yes, we'll make it look sleek and professional. Then we'll automate everything so users can submit entries and you can capture responses without lifting a finger. This will be a lot of fun and you'll pick up some awesome Excel skills along the way. Let's dive in. Here I am in Microsoft Excel, and if you'd like to follow along today, all you have to do is open up a new workbook in Excel. We're going to do everything from scratch. First off, I'd like to insert a logo on my form. It makes things just feel a little bit more official. To insert an image onto the form, let's go up to the top tabs and click on the one titled Insert. Then right over here, we have the option for pictures under the illustrations category. And when we click on that, we have two options, but let's go with place over cells. And right here in this next menu, let's access the image from this device. In this video, I'm going to insert a logo for the Kevin Cookie Company. And if you truly want to follow along and have everything look exactly how it looks on my screen, you can get this logo from the kevincookiecompany.com website. You can simply copy and save it from there. I'll click on this image right down here and let's insert it into this worksheet. This now inserts the logo and it's a little big. So let's select the image and over here we could use the handles to resize the logo. Let's resize it and let's place it right, let's say here near the top of where this form will be. Let's now start building out the form. I'm going to build a cookie order form for the Kevin Cookie Company. This way customers can come in and they can place orders for our most delicious cookies. But keep in mind, you can make this your own and you can customize it to your specific needs. This video will show you all of the fundamentals so you can make your own automated forms. Let's start by entering in a header or a title for this form. I'll click into cell C9 and type in cookie order form. Let's now go down 2 rows and it's probably a good idea to collect the customer's name. So here, I'll type in name. Let's now go down another 2 rows. And being that this is an order form, I need to know what type of product or what type of cookie the customer wants. So let's start by adding a header. First off, I'd like to know the cookie type. And we offer 3 different cookie types on this order form. We have chocolate chip, which is personally my favorite. We also have a sugar cookie. And lastly, we also have oatmeal raisin. One thing to call out, at the Kevin Cookie Company, we offer more types of cookies, but just for simplicity, we'll stick with these 3 different cookies today. Once a customer selects the type of cookie that they would like, I'd also like to know how many of that cookie or the quantity. So right up here, let's click into cell E13 and I'll type in quantity. Then let's scroll down a little bit and I have 2 more questions that I would like to ask as part of this order form. I'd like to know the delivery method. So how should we get this order to the customer? And if we go down just a little bit more, let's click into cell C20. And lastly, I'd also like to know when they would like to receive the order or the delivery date. And like that, I think I now have all the questions that I need on this order form. Now that we have all of our base questions down, let's now apply some formatting. Yes, that's right. We are formatting a form. First, let's click on Cookie Order Form right at the top, and let's make it bold just to stand out a little bit more. And then we could also increase the font size a little bit just so it really stands out that this is a cookie order form. Then if we look down a little bit more, let's also do the same with cookie type since this is a category for all these different cookie types. Here, I'll simply make that bold. And over here too, I'll do the same with quantity. Let's also make that bold. Let's now tweak some of the column widths. I'd like the column to be wide enough so it fits all the different cookie types and the delivery method. So right up on top, I'll select this line between column C and D, and let's drag this over. And that way it fits all of those different values. I want to make it apparent that users can type in a value for their name, the delivery method, the delivery date. So I need to format these cells to look more like an input field. Over here, I'll click into cell D11 next to the name. And right up on top on the ribbon under the Home tab, let's click on the fill icon and let's give it this light gray background. If I hover over, you can see a sample of what that looks like. And right up on top, let's also give it a border around this cell. I'll click on this, and in this list, let's select the item that says outside border. And here, when I click away, here now it looks like an input field where someone has to enter in some type of value, or in this case, their name. Instead of applying this same exact formatting on delivery method and on delivery date, instead, we can use something called the format painter. What that does is it copies the formatting and then you can paste it into other cells in your worksheet. So how do we do that? Well, select the cell that you would like to copy the format from. So I have cell D11 selected. Then up on the top home ribbon, we have this icon called the Format Painter. Now here's a cool thing. If I double click on it, that now applies that formatting and I can paste it here, and let's also paste it down here. Now that I'm done pasting this formatting, I'll press the Escape key. That now exits out of Format Painter mode. Once someone fills out this form, they need some way to submit the form, or basically to place their order. So how do we do that? Well, we need to insert a Place Order button. Right up on the top tabs, let's click on the option titled Insert. And right here in Illustrations, we have an icon for shapes. And if we click on that, all sorts of different shapes, but we're gonna stick with a simple one. We'll go with this rectangle. Let's scroll down just a little bit and let's now insert a rectangle at the bottom of this form. So I'll place it, let's say right there, and this will be our Place Order button. I'll click into the rectangle and I can now type in text into this rectangle. So let's type in Place Cookie Order. Now I want the text to be centered. So let's go back to home up on top, and over here for the alignment, let's click on center. And I would also like it to be middle aligned. So let's click on this, and that way the text will sit right in the center of this button. Now here's a neat trick that you can use. When you select a shape on your Excel sheet, let's say you'd like to align it with the cells on the sheet. Press the Alt key on your keyboard, and now when you move it around, look at that, it locks to the different cells on your sheet. I'd like to lock it so it's aligned with all of the text right up above. There, that's in the perfect position. I think that looks good. You might have noticed as we worked through the form and we added all these different input fields, we skipped over the cookie type category along with the quantity. So why is that? Well, I don't want someone to type in the cookie type. Instead, I'd like them to simply select whether or not they want that cookie type. And the best way to do that is to use a checkbox. The Excel team recently added this into Excel, so let's take advantage of it. Right up here, I'll click into cell D14 right next to chocolate chip. Then let's go to the top tabs and click on Insert. And right here in the center, we have some controls. Now it says controls, but there's only one control, and that's a checkbox. So maybe more will come in the future. Here, I can insert a checkbox next to chocolate chip. Let's go down a row. Let's insert another checkbox next to sugar and one more next to oatmeal raisin. Right next to the cookie type checkbox, I have another column for the quantity. So if someone selects chocolate chip, I'd like them to put down how many chocolate chip cookies they want. Here, I'd like to insert an input field, but I only want to show that if someone selects that cookie type. Otherwise, people might feel like they have to type something in here. So how do we do this? We can use something called conditional formatting. What the heck does that mean? Well, this way, if someone checks this box, that's the condition, then we show an input field here. And conditional formatting makes this really easy. So how do we do that? Well, select this cell or cell E14. Then up on the top tabs, let's click into Home. And right here in the center of the Home ribbon, we have a category called Conditional Formatting. Let's click into this. Within conditional formatting, you have all sorts of different options, and this is very rich functionality. For example, you can have it highlight certain cells if, let's say, it's greater than a certain value, or less than, or between. You could also highlight the top items in a list. You could add data bars, color scales. There are all sorts of different ways that you can format your cells based on the value that's in a cell. It's extremely powerful. Now, at the very bottom, let's click on this option that says New Rule. Here too, we have all sorts of different rules that we can set up to affect the formatting of a cell. At the very bottom of this list, we have an option that says use a formula to determine which cells to format. That's what we're going to use. Let's move this over just a little bit so we can see our order form next to this new formatting rule screen. Now right here, it allows us to set up the rule description, and it says format values where this formula is true. So let's walk through what we want to do. So if someone checks this box, this cell D14 will have the value of true. And if the box is unchecked, this cell will have the value of false. And if it's set to true, we'd like to show some formatting here. So let's try this out. Right here, it says format values where this formula is true. So we need it to be true. So let's click into this cell D14. So when this is true or when this is checked, then we're going to apply the formatting here. And right down here, we can set what we want that formatting to be. So over here, let's click on format. And here we have all sorts of different options. We can set the font, the border, the fill. Let's start by setting the fill. I want it to have the same look as all of these other input fields. So I'll select this light gray color. Then let's click on border and let's give it an outline. Then click on OK. Now this looks the same as all these other input fields. That's what I want. And here, let's click on OK. And look at that. Right now, nothing happened. Congratulations. We still made progress. Over here, let's now check this box and look at that. The input field appears when this box is checked. But what if you uncheck it? Here, let's uncheck it, and look at that, the box disappears. That's exactly what I wanted. If I now click on the checkbox next to sugar, you'll notice that I have not yet applied the conditional formatting to this cell, and I haven't applied it to this cell. So how do we take the formatting that's currently in this cell and apply it to all the other cells? Unfortunately, I cannot just drag it down. I have to make one tweak first. So let's go back up to conditional formatting, and then down at the bottom of this list, let's click on Manage Rules. Within Manage Rules, here I see the rule that I just set up. Up at the top, let's click on Edit Rule. At the bottom, I can see my rule. It's looking at cell D14, but it has a $sign in front of the D and the 14, or the column and the row. So what does that mean? This is an absolute reference. So even if I were to copy down this conditional formatting, it would only ever look at this one specific cell. So how do we change this? We need to make it what's called a relative reference. So as we copy this formula down, it also adjusts what checkbox it's looking at. So how do we do that? Well, we need to get rid of this $sign. So right over here, let's get rid of the $sign in front of the 14, and then down at the bottom, let's click on OK. Now this looks good. Let's click on Apply and then OK. And now I can take this formatting and let's drag it all the way down. Now again, it doesn't look like much happened, but let's test it out. Over here, I'll check this box and look at that. It applies the formatting, and there too, it also applies the formatting. So we've now applied conditional formatting to all three of these cells. Let's now shift our focus to the delivery method. As it is right now, a customer could come in and they could fill in whatever idea happens to come to their mind for the delivery method. And here at the Kevin Cookie Company, we have a constrained set of options. In fact, we only offer 3 different delivery methods. So here, I think a drop-down list would work perfectly. With this cell selected, let's go up to the top tabs and let's click on Data. Then in the Data Tools category, you'll see an option called Data Validation. Let's click on that. This opens up data validation, and this allows you to limit what people can enter into different cells in your workbook. So right here, it's currently set to any value. So people can truly come in and they can enter anything into this cell, but we don't offer any options for delivery. Right here, we see an option for list. So let's click on list, and right down below, I can type in the different options. I'll type in our 3 delivery options, and I'll separate each one with a comma. This looks good, so down below, let's click on OK. Now, here's the cool thing. If I go down to delivery method, you'll notice that it added a drop-down list. Now, when I click on this drop-down menu, here we see the 3 different options. And yes, they are all good options. With the first one, with the squirrels, just make sure that if you're ordering a cookie with nuts, just be aware that your cookie may not make it to its destination. All other types of cookies, they seem to work fine. Let's now click into the delivery date text field. And here too, we can also limit what someone can enter in here. Now, the question is, what delivery date would you like? So let's limit this to just dates. Click into the cell, then up on the top tabs, let's click into data. And just like we did with delivery method, let's click on data validation. Currently, it's set to any value, but if we click on this dropdown here, we could just restrict this to dates. Let's click on that, and now I can set it between 2 different dates. I'll set it between today, and let's set it to today next year. So we only allow people to order cookies up to 1 year in advance. I'll type that in and then click on OK. Now, let's say I type in my name and hit enter. It doesn't allow me to enter that in because that's not a date. We're making some good progress now. The form itself is really coming together, but it doesn't really look all that sleek or professional. So how do we make this look better? Well, one of the first things we could do is to turn off all of these grid lines so it doesn't look like it's in a spreadsheet. To do that, let's go up to the top tabs and click on View. And within this middle category for Show, we can turn off the grid lines. And if I click on that, the grid lines have vanished. I think it would also look better if we added some type of border around this form. So over here, let's click into cell, let's say B2, and let's go over to, let's say G2. So I'll select that, and then let's go down all the way to the bottom of the form, right underneath the Place Cookie Order button. I'll select this whole area. Then let's click on the Home tab. And let's now add a border. Right here, we could click on this icon to add outside borders, and look at that. We now have a border around this cookie order form. One more tweak I'd like to make, let's increase the width of the name field. This way people, maybe they have a long name. Let's click on this, drag it over, and that way the form has a little bit more space. I think that looks good, and here I'll just make sure that the logo is nice and centered. Let's now also add a background around this order form. Over here, I'll click on row number 1 and let's go up to the fill tool. We have all sorts of different options for color, but I like the blue color since that goes along with our logo. Let's go with maybe this darker shade, the dark blue. I'll click on that. Let's also click on column A here too. I'll also apply the color. Next, I'll click into column H and then press Control Shift and right arrow key, and that'll bring you all the way to the rightmost point in your worksheet. Then let's also apply color there. And if we scroll down a little bit more, you'll see I have this white here. Let's click on row 25. And just like we did when we were going to the right side, let's press Control Shift and down arrow to go all the way to the bottom of the spreadsheet. And let's apply this blue fill there as well. Now, this is really starting to look nice. Let's now fill in a mock order on this order form. So right here, let's type in a name. I'll type in my own name. I'm going to order some cookies. And over here, I like all of these different cookies. So I'll check all these boxes and let's fill in different amounts. Down below, let's click on this drop down and let's go with, let's say the drone drop. That feels like a really clean and precise way to get my cookies. And down below, I'll enter in the delivery date. Now I'd like to get them as soon as possible. And here's a little trick you could use in Excel. Press Control together with semicolon, and that'll insert in today's date. Today is 1/29/2025. Lastly, let's go down to the very bottom where we see the worksheet name. It's currently titled Sheet 1. Let's double click on that and we could give it a new name. I'll call this order form. Excellent. Let's now add a new sheet titled Responses. This is the sheet that we'll use to collect all of the form submissions. So right here, let's click on this plus icon. We can double click on the text and let's call this Responses. On the Responses worksheet, let's go up to cell A1 and right at the very top, let's type in some text that says Responses currently on form. This section will represent all the answers that are currently on the order form. Next, let's type in column headers that represent all the different questions on the form. So here, for example, I have the name. If we go back to the order form, the first question on my form is the name. Then I ask about the cookie type. So we have 3 cookie types and each cookie type has a quantity. If I go back to responses, here I have the cookie type quantity, another cookie type, the quantity, and so forth. Then at the very end on our form, we have a question for the delivery method as well as the delivery date. And here too, I have a column for the delivery method and the delivery date. Let's now add a formula underneath this column header that ties back to the form. So here as an example, I'd like to pull in the name. I'll enter in the equal sign. That lets Excel know that I'm about to enter in either a formula or a function. And then let's go back to the order form and right here, let's click on my name. Then you could press the enter key and here it pulls the name directly back into our tracking sheet. Then let's do the same for all of these other ones. So let's take chocolate chip. I'll enter in the equal sign, go to the order form. Let's click on this checkbox and then hit enter. Now you'll notice it sends back true. This lets us know that the current value of that checkbox is checked. That's what true means. If it's unchecked, it'll say false. For the quantity, let's enter in the equal sign, go back to the order form, and here I'll click on the quantity, press enter, and here it pulls in an 8. Now I'm going to do this and I'll go through and add this for all the rest of the questions on this form. Once you finish filling in all these different formulas, the values that you see here on this sheet should align perfectly with all the different values that you see on the order form. If you did that, you're making good progress. Let's now add another section. I'll click into cell A5 and I'll type in all form responses. We're going to use this section to keep track of every single form submission. Right up here, let's copy all of these different headers. I'll copy that and let's paste it down below so we have all the same headers right underneath all form responses. Next, we're gonna have some fun. We're going to automate it. So when someone submits a form, it automatically gets added to all form responses. How do we do that? Well, first off, we need to turn on something called Developer as one of your tabs in Excel. Now, if you don't have a tab titled Developer, go over to your ribbon and right click, and then click on the option that says Customize the ribbon. This shows you all different tabs that you can add to your ribbon. You should see an option for Developer. If it's unchecked, make sure to check it, and then down at the bottom, let's click on OK, and that should bring the Developer tab up on top. Next, we're going to use something called a macro to get the data from the form into our tracking sheet. Now, I know that might sound scary, but you don't have to know anything about programming. We're going to show Excel exactly what we would like it to do. So right up on top, let's click on this button that says Record Macro. This opens up a prompt and we can give our macro or our automation a name. Now, currently it's macro 1. That's not that descriptive, so let's call it something better. I'll type in copy form data. Down below, let's click on OK. And right now it's recording our macro. With a macro, Excel records and remembers every single thing we do in Excel. And that way we can play that back later to automate some task. Now, I want to take what's currently on the form and I'd like to add that to all form responses. So let's record our first step. Down at the very bottom, let's click into the responses sheet. Now, I know we're currently in the sheet, so why are we clicking on it? Well, maybe when we kick off this flow or this macro, we might be on the order form sheet. So we want to make sure that we start off on this specific sheet. Now, next, we want to add a new record to all form responses. So right here, let's right click on row number 7, and then let's click on insert, and that'll insert a new row. Now you might be wondering, why did we do that? There's nothing else in this table, but once we start adding more form responses, we want to make sure that we have a clean row that we could add new data to. Next, let's go up to what's currently on the form, which is up here, and I'll highlight all these different values, and let's press Control-C to copy. That'll place it on the clipboard. Then let's go down to all form responses where we have this new row that we just inserted. Then let's go up to the Home tab and go to Paste. And we're going to paste in values. The reason we're doing that is we don't want to paste all the different formulas that we copied up above. Instead, we just want to keep the value. You'll notice over on the right-hand side that it pasted the date as its value. Currently, we're on day 45,686, but I would prefer to have that formatted as a date as we see up above. To do that, we can right-click on this cell and we can go down to Format Cells. Let's click on that. As a quick tip, you can also press Control-1 on your keyboard. That's the shortcut key that'll bring you here. And let's set it to date, and I like that formatting. Let's click on OK. And now that we added this form response down into this section, we need to clear out the form. So down at the bottom, let's click into the order form worksheet. Let's now clear out this order form. Right up on top, I'll click in the name and then hit the backspace key, and that deletes the current entry. I'll do the same for the quantity, for the delivery method, and the delivery date. You'll notice that I still have all these checkboxes checked. I'll click into this cell, and let's make sure that the checkbox has a value of false. Let's do the same for the next checkbox. I'll type in false, hit enter, and here too, let's also type in false and hit enter. Then, as a nice touch, let's click into the cell for the name. This way, when someone submits a cookie order, it'll place this entry directly on the name. So then that way the next person can type in their name and submit their order. We're now all done recording our macro. So how do we stop recording? Well, up on top, let's click on the Developer tab. And over here, let's now click on Stop Recording. Now that we've recorded this macro, over here I can click on Macros, and we see that I have successfully recorded a macro, but I'm not quite sure if it works as I expect it to. With macros, oftentimes you'll need to record it, test it out to make sure that it actually does what you want it to. Now right up on top, let's have someone else submit a cookie order. Let's say Megan ordered some cookies and she's a big fan of our chocolate chip cookies. She wanted 15 of them. And over here, let's select a delivery method. And over here, she really seems to like the catapult, even though sometimes it does damage the cookies. And over here, we'll set the delivery date for today. Now, I can't actually place the order yet. I just want to test that this macro works as expected. So let's click on macros. And over here, I can click on run. And over there, it took all the entries and it should be on the responses form. And if we look here, look at that. Megan's order shows up. She wanted chocolate chip because it says true, and she wanted 15. And if we look over at sugar, here it's false. Oatmeal raisin is false. Here I see the delivery method and the delivery date. And this is the reason we inserted a new row. We always want it to appear at the top and it pushes down all the old records. Now that we tested that this works as we expect it to, let's now add this macro to our button. Down below, let's click back to the order form. And here I have that button that says place cookie order. It doesn't currently do anything, but let's right click on this. And within this context menu, we have the option to assign a macro. I'll click on that. And this opens up the assign macro prompt. And here I see copy order form. I'll assign it to this macro and click on OK. Now we can test it out. So let's say Michael wants to try some of our cookies. He likes sugar. And for now, let me just leave these blank. let's just test the button. I'll press place cookie order, and look at that. Let's go to responses, and here I see Michael's response now in this tracking sheet. Before we can share this form out with others, we still have a little bit of work that we need to do. Let's jump back to the order form. Currently, anyone who comes in on this form can make modifications to it. As an example, they could delete the logo. Maybe they add a new question or remove a question, or maybe they change the cookie name. Of course, I don't want people to be able to do that. I need to lock down this sheet. So how do we do that? Well, up on top, let's click on the Review tab. And over on the right-hand side, we have a category called Protect. Let's click on Protect Sheet. This opens up a dialog. At the very top, we can set a password to protect the sheet. For now, I'll leave this blank, but do know that you can set a password. And down below, you can set the permissions for the sheet. So what someone is able to do on the sheet. For example, should they be able to insert rows? Can they format the different rows? And the list goes on and on. Now, I'll leave it really locked down, where you can only select locked and unlocked cells and then click on OK. Now, one thing you'll notice, if I click on the Home tab, most of the different options on the ribbon are grayed out. So I can't apply conditional formatting. I can't change the text size. In fact, if I try to click on the logo, I can't even select it. And here, if I try to type in my name, I get an error message because this entire sheet is locked down. We don't want it to be this locked down though, because we want people to be able to fill out our form. So let's go back to review. And over here, let's click on Unprotect Sheet. I want to unlock the different form fields so someone can enter in the form, but they can't click on anything else. So let's select the name text input field. Then let's press the Control key and select all of the checkboxes. Let's select all of the quantity fields, the delivery method, and the delivery date. So all those cells are currently selected. Do you remember the shortcut key to format the cells? We covered this earlier. Press the Control key together with 1, and that opens up Format Cells. All the way over on the right-hand side, we have a tab titled Protection. And here, by default, all cells on the sheet are locked, meaning that no one can click into them and edit them if this sheet is protected. But over here, I can uncheck this, and that way these cells are now unlocked. Let's click on OK. And up on top, let's now protect the sheet again, and then click on OK. Let's now test this. I'll click into this cell, which is locked, and if I try to type something in, I get an error message. But here, if I type in my name in this cell, that works as I expect it to. Now let me go through and fill out this form to make sure I'm able to select and enter in values all throughout this form. So there, I was able to enter in all those values. That's perfect. Now, one other problem, someone might delete a sheet. For example, they could right-click on responses and here they could delete it. And I don't want people to be able to do that. Now, up on top, we have another option to protect the workbook. Currently, the sheet itself is protected, but I want to protect the structure of the entire workbook. So let's click on this. And here too, I could also set a password, but I'll leave it blank for now and then click on OK. Now, if someone tries to add a new sheet, they can't. And if they right-click to try to delete a sheet, this is grayed out and they're unable to do that. Now that we've protected both the worksheet and the workbook, let's say we want to present this in a kiosk so people just see the form and none of the Chrome associated with Excel. That's pretty easy to set up. Up on top, we can click on View. And over here, we could turn off the formula bar and we can also turn off the headings. So now you just see the form. Over on the right-hand side, we could click on this dropdown. And over here, we could jump into full screen mode. Now I can zoom in. So here, we just see the form on this page. To save this form, we have to take one extra step. To get the ribbon back, in the top right-hand corner, let's click on the 3 dots. And over here, we can click on Show Ribbon. When I click on that, the ribbon has now returned, and I could also bring the formula bar back and the headings. To save this, let's click on the File menu, then go down to Save As. Within Save As, over here, you can type in a file name, and right here for the file type, by default, it's set to Excel Workbook. But because we added a macro to this sheet, we need to save it as an Excel macro-enabled workbook. So over here, let's type this in. I'll type in cookie form, and then let's save it. Let's now try submitting the form again. Down below, I'll click on Place Cookie Order, and if we jump into responses, here we see all the different submissions, and we have a record of every single order. One thing to call out, when you open this workbook again in the future and you click on it, up on top, you'll see a security warning telling you that macros by default have been disabled. However, if you want the form to work, you'll have to enable the macro content by clicking on that icon. Here, you can make it a trusted document so you don't see that prompt again.
And there you have it. You just learned how to place an order at the Kevin Cookie Company. Oh, wait, you thought this was about making a data entry form? Why do you think the Kevin Cookie Company has me making these tutorials? It's all part of our master plan
to sell more cookies. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about Excel or cookies, I guess, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.